It is Saturday, the 10th of April, 2021. I'm Scott L. Miller. This is Sheepguarding Llama. Welcome to the show. The last 9 days, no, not quite, but several days, I have been filming in the car because I was driving to do the storage. Now back, I did today, the 11th, that you'll get a little bit earliest, so it's going to seem like I went back in time. Sorry, sometimes these things happen. So Saturday, this was our big packing day. Francesca couldn't come down to get a load of stuff from our storage unit today, so we had the day to pack, and we had to do a lot of packing because we had to get the van packed and the SUV packed. But first, we had to send an entire SUV load to donations before we could do that to get stuff out of the way. So this is a crazy amount of stuff going on all in one day. So the entire day was all three of us packing and loading stuff all day. So the first thing we did was took everything that we knew we had, moved it to the garage, moved the vans back there, the vehicles, loaded them up, discovered that we had a lot of space left. So we got to work on the attic. Paul went up and we got everything out of the attic that we could, which may be everything. I need to go up and inspect that. I don't know if we really got everything or not. But we pulled down the attic, and Dominica went through basically everything from the attic and determined what we're keeping and what we're not. So that was a big thing we've been worried about for a while, is just how much was up there and just how much work it was going to be and all that. So luckily, that is done. So we're feeling very good about the fact that that is completed. Very happy. And really, it wasn't that bad. A lot of stuff's being donated from there, so there's going to be another run to donate things really soon. But that's not a big deal, right? The amount of stuff that's going to storage, not horrible. So yay! Some of the funny things that we did find, we have this enormous, all the dogs in the neighborhood love when I walk around, a enormous N-scale model train set that I have. I mean, huge, right? Biggest thing I've ever seen. And I can't even remember when we bought it. I'm sure you can look back on SGL and figure it out, but this goes way back to when Dominica and I were doing a whole bunch of model train stuff a long time ago. So I'm going to, real quick, it has been forever since I showed our alley. This is our alley. We were in there a bit today dealing with packing stuff. We're just walking around the block because when am I ever going to do this again? And yeah, I need the light because it's getting dark. So I found this huge thing. We're like, we're not going to keep that. And then for years, I've been mentioning this to the girls because I always had this in the hopes that the girls would want to do model trains with me, right? Even if we didn't do trains, I wanted to do the modeling, like do the little buildings, make little dioramas, whatever. Every so often I pull out the books, I pull out the magazines, show it to the girls, and I'm like, look at these cool things we could do. And they're always like, nah. This time, we bring the thing down, and I'm like, oh, yeah, we found one of the train things in the attic, and both of them, they're like, their eyes light up, and they're like, oh, we want to do that. And I'm like, what? Now? After all these years of me trying to get you to do this, now you want to do it? Now that we're moving stuff into storage, and we're going to have to move this thing to Nicaragua, and heaven only knows where we're going to find the stuff to do it with. So it went to the storage unit. I mean, I'm excited, and let's be realistic. Chana is 9, she's turning 10 in a couple weeks, and Liesel is 12, and I didn't really get into doing model trains until I was 11, and when I did that with Dad, I was too young to really understand how to do things, right? Like, how do you just take plaster of Paris and some stuff and like make something? I didn't know how to do it, right? It was just a little bit too much for me. So the girls are definitely better at that stuff than I was at that age by a long shot. So I think Chana is already closer to where I was at like 13 or 14. Because she's very into crafts and art and that kind of stuff. So it really fits things that she'll just, pick up and start doing clay modeling or whatever. She doesn't need us to do anything. They're much more independent than I ever was. So I think that they are pretty close to the point where they would start getting into it, but just barely getting there. So for all the years that I've mentioned it, it's kind of been like, I don't care. Why would I be into that? So it makes sense to me that they're interested, but the timing is a little bit rough. But anyway, so we packed that. We also brought down all of my laser discs from, I think that's Damn It. He knows us because we rescued him recently. And there's a kitty in front of me on the sidewalk. I have no idea why the cat's going in front of me down the sidewalk. It's a weird time to be walking down the sidewalk if you're a cat with me following you, but hey. So we brought down the Laserdisc, 3 huge boxes of Laserdiscs. It's about 350 discs, right? And we've been storing these for forever. And we have 2 Laserdisc players. One is in the van we took down today, and one is already down in the storage unit. And so this was a hard decision because I love my movie collection, and it's been a big part of my life. And literally on our very first time, it wasn't really a date, but the first time that Dominica and I hung out, other than at the actual wedding that we met at, it was to come over and watch Laserdiscs, right? So these are the original Laserdiscs that from the first time that we spent any time together, and the Laserdisc player from that time. And my home theater stuff, this predates SGL really, but my home theater stuff with the Laserdisc was a huge portion of my life at a certain age, mostly in the mid 90s. So this is stuff I've always hung on to. Realistically, my kids will never appreciate Laserdiscs. They're never gonna really spend time and be interested. They're not even into movies. Like, it's not a thing that they like. So I had to make the judgment call that keeping the Laserdisc does not make sense. So the Laserdisc did not go to the storage unit. I know everybody's very sad. And the tomorrow, so I'm saying this a little bit ahead of time, we actually brought back the Laserdisc players, so they're going to stay with the Laserdisc and hopefully go to a good family somewhere who wants to watch Laserdisc. But it's not going to be us in Nicaragua. Part of the problem is you can't convert them to anything, so, or not reasonably. So what's the point? Like, it's just, and it's so much work. Even the DVDs that we have, it's a tough argument for should we bother to keep them because it's so much of a pain. Those at least we can break down and put into little sleeves and stuff. And like books on CD, I'm almost down to we should just rebuy them on Audible or something so we don't have to deal with all that. But that's a little bit expensive. So holding off on doing that to compress them down more, but really, every time I want to listen to a book, I go and find it on Audible and go get it again rather than digging out the CDs or whatever, because I don't even have a CD player. Where would I do that? It's like a huge pain. I have to find a computer that has a drive, which we have basically none that do, and then pop it in, convert it to MP3, and then copy it to something. It's a lot of work. Seriously, by the time I do that much work, it has paid for me to go buy it on Audible, which is where I want it anyway in the long run. Anyway, so that was one of the things that came down, and I'm kind of like, here's some nostalgia. There's a lot of stuff we're not keeping at this point, and for the most part, I think it's Dominica who's been having a harder time letting go of stuff than me. I'm not really sure. I definitely struggle with it too, but we're not keeping. We have a load of stuff that's going to Francesca and to the little cousins, but our kitchen table that we got when we got married and all the kitchen chairs, we're not keeping that. That was a tough one. We really wanted to keep that table because that has been our dining room table since we got married. So for the girls, we've always had this table. Always. Like, there's just never been a time we didn't have the table. But is the table that we never really eat at a big deal for them? They did school at it for a long time. So, I mean, they've used it, and Luciana's done art on it a lot. But we can't keep it. It was a perfect table for Dominica and me when we first got married, because it's a small table, and for 2 people it was really nice, fancy, good amount of space for 2 people. You could expand it if you had 4 people. It was really nice. Actually, that one's already in storage. It may end up going with us. We are not keeping our bookshelf. We have a teak bookshelf that we've had since we got married. We have no need for a bookshelf, and there's no way, especially the type it is. We really like it, but luckily some of these things are things we bought with wedding money, and they weren't exactly gifts from anybody, so that kind of stuff, it's a little bit easier to get rid of. And we've been married for 17 and a half years, so this isn't stuff we just got. These things have gotten some use over the years, and they're abused and worn out, and they've been moved from place to place a lot, so we're struggling with giving these things up, but we're making it happen, and it's not terrible. So we're working our way through all of the nostalgia and all of the old things that we used to own, and we're we're cutting down how much we own. And I mean, books, we've gotten rid of so many books and stuff like that. That we've gotten pretty good at sorting through. So today, the whole day was dealing with this stuff. It was the attic stuff and going through the girls' bedroom and going through just so much, and we managed to get both vehicles completely loaded to the hilt, and we'll be going down first thing in the morning to Houston to drop those off. Francesca will meet us there. While we were packing this afternoon, Paul ran out and got some Burger King Impossible Whoppers. We had that in the middle of the day. Then tonight when we were done, I ran out and got Taco Bueno, which is something we're really going to miss when we're gone from here. The best Tex-Mex, probably around, definitely the best Tex-Mex fast food, bar none. And we won't be able to get anything like that in Nicaragua, so I'm sad about that. But we're trying to do those things, right? We're starting to, we really need to eat at all the places that we won't get to eat at again for a really long time or ever, right? We kind of got to wear ourselves out a little bit so we're not so sad when we get down there. We love the food in Nicaragua, but there's going to be so many things that we can't have anymore. Because even though there's a Burger King there, they get their veggie patties from Poland, not from Impossible, so they're quite different. I don't even know what they're like. We're gonna try them out. Could be cool, but yeah. So, so that was our day. A really big thing for stuff that's disappearing from the house. Paul's bedroom set, which is enormous. It's the biggest one I've ever seen. Huge, blocky wood things. His headboard takes, 12 cubic feet or something. It's insane how big the thing is physically. He actually found a buyer who's coming tomorrow evening to pick it up. So that is a really big deal that we're going to manage to get rid of that, because even now as we're packing up, that thing, he has to store half of it in my room because he doesn't have enough room in his room to store it. So that's all going, and that's going to make a ton of space for us to be able to move around and do things. Next up, we have to get rid of all the couches, which we were hoping Emily would be able to take, but she's not. She's not getting a house, so she's not able to take them, which is really unfortunate because we have to just put them out on the curb in a couple days and hope that somebody takes them and makes use of them. But I mean, they're not amazing, but they're not that old, and they were nice. We really liked them. The white one that Dominica and I picked out when we first moved back to Peekskill, and the black one, the movie theater one that the girls picked out at the same time, that was the first furniture that the girls got to pick. But we can't. There's no way we can take that stuff. And those things make me sad. Right, there's a lot of nostalgia. This is kind of a rough week for me because I'm very nostalgic in general, and I have 2 daughters and all the things that we have to give up, including the house. These are all things that this is their childhood, right? Now we're keeping a lot of their toys. There's a lot of things we're trying to keep. We're not able to keep Liesel's scooter. She has an electric scooter and she really wanted to keep it, but there's nowhere in Nicaragua that she can use it, right? We don't have a driveway, we don't have a parking lot, and we are going to be living directly on the main road, so that's a major problem, and that would be really dangerous if she was to try to use it. But more importantly, the battery on it is dead and there's no replacement battery. Dominica tried to get one, but the battery isn't working and she can't replace it. So the thing doesn't work at this point. So Liesel can't use it at all. Now, Liesel has been a trooper about leaving stuff behind. And really, Luciana has too. Both of them have been so good about evaluating all of their things and being like, well, this is really important to us and this isn't. So we know Liesel has to have her My Little Ponies. They were such a huge portion of her childhood. And Luciana really wants her Calico Critters, which we found, and she wants those. But we found their Barbie stuff, and Dominica's like, I think they're gonna want to keep it, and even put it into storage. Both girls are like, no, we're okay with giving that away. That's not a real important one. So they really are picking and choosing the things that matter to them. Of course, they're keeping their Legos and anything that's really sentimental. But in general, they're doing just amazing at handling giving everything up. And Liesel doesn't like moving in general, so that's always a challenge, but she does like going places. Luciana is ready to go. She is tired of being sedentary and ready to move on, which is pretty impressive because for Liesel, she lived in Peekskill about twice as long as Luciana, and she lived in Irving before we lived here at the house in Carrollton. And so for her, there's a little bit less attachment to this house, I think, although she lived here during older years. So I don't know, maybe there's more attachment there. But for Luciana, this is the house she was born in. By the way, see if we can see him. See the little bunny rabbit? I had to stop in the road last night as I drove up because he would just sit in the road and wouldn't move. I kept edging the car up and he'd be like, la, 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 la. He is a very brave rabbit, as, you know, rabbits go. He's still pretty skittish, but he's just hanging out. He hasn't moved. What are you doing, buddy? Where do you live? He's always like right in this yard. There he is. There. Boop. Boop. So, you know, oh, there he goes. He's running. Where'd he go? He's just hanging out at the corner. There he goes. The rabbit. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure it's way harder for me, right? Because these are my babies. And this is the house, right? This is the last house we had with Oreo. This is the house where, you know, Liesel got to go house shopping with us. And the house where Liesel and I, you know, when I got to tell Liesel she had a new baby sister and we went to the hospital. And like, that's such a big moment for me in the house, is that moment of, hey, Liesel, it's time to go to the hospital. We were playing in the living room on the floor. And it was like, oh, it's time to go. And she's like, yay, I get to meet my sister. And now they're the best of friends, right? And, you know, for Luciana, it's just always been her home, except for when, but we've lived abroad so much, maybe she just isn't as attached to it. But it's going to be rough for everybody, giving up so much of our anchor, right? But today was a super successful day. We got so much done, and tomorrow will be very busy delivering stuff. But that was our day. Thanks for joining me. I'll see everybody tomorrow on the road.